A number of global economists have expressed an expectation that the $550 billion global semiconductor industry will grow to $1 trillion over the next 7 to 9 years. It took our industry 70 years to get the first half trillion, and the potential to nearly double that in a tenth of the time is absolutely mind-boggling. That kind of growth will be exciting for us as engineers to partake in, but as we enter into 2024, what new challenges and opportunities should we expect that will keep us on the path of expansion? It's been a really interesting decade so far, but the growth that we in the semiconductor industry are going to see as we continue into the 2020s is going to be absolutely incredible. Some of the questions I think we've got to ask ourselves are, where are the major areas of growth going to be for semiconductors? Allocation has been a huge story in the early part of this decade, but is it going to come back, or is it really gone for good? And what are the applications and new technologies that we should be considering that can help us to grow our own companies, our business, and our overall market share as we're developing and designing the next generation of products? Today, I have the great privilege of getting to speak to a good friend of mine, Executive Vice President at Future Electronics of our global marketing organization, Karim Yasmine. Karim, always a pleasure to speak to you, man.
Hey, Todd.
So thanks so much for joining us on The Current. And I think there's a lot of questions that, engineers and company leaders are asking right now about where the economy is going, about where the semiconductor industry is going. So, are there any indications that you've gotten on 2024, what it's going to look like for the industry as a whole, and kind of what kind of growth we should expect in electronic components?
So, hey, Todd, thank you for having me today. Excited to be here with you. You brought up a lot of topics in your opening that we could talk about for quite some time. So let me just say a few things before. This path to $1 trillion, right, which is often talked about in our industry, is a documented path through a lot of associations like WSTS and Gartner and others that are tracking the path to $1 trillion for our industry. What's interesting is on top of that is all the IP&E content that isn't as tracked the way that WSTS does. Interconnect, passive, electromechanical products. So we're well north of $1 trillion when we include all technologies into where our industry is headed. And certainly, there are opportunities and there's challenges. And one of the things that stands out the most right now is how volatile the industry has become, right? So lots of cycles, ups and downs. It seems like the cycles come out more often. They seem to last longer, and they have a drastic impact, obviously, on our purchasing and engineering partners. So I would say that the first question was, what are some of the challenges, that we face? Well, certainly there's challenges through the cycle, right? The volatility, the challenges in the economy as we've experienced in the last couple of years, certainly with inflation where it is and interest rates where they are and where they're heading. And then you have the uncontrollable events, sadly wars around the world and other events that are out of control that have a drastic impact on our industry and our economy. There's the technical challenge side of things, right? Which is what you know best and what our technical community knows best, which is as things get smarter, use power in different ways, become connected in different ways. Some of the challenges are security, some of the software challenges. Component selection is always going to remain a challenge where people need guidance, but just expertise in specialty technologies that may not have existed a couple of years ago. Things like matter and wide bandgap and other areas that are really cool new technology areas that didn't exist a few years ago. So those are the challenges. The opportunity is that innovation continues. We're just in an amazing industry, right? Everybody's innovating. And if you sit back and think 10 years ago in your house, what we had in our homes 10 years ago that had technology, smart technology, right? So home, smart everything, medical, wellness, advancements. And then you look at cars and you look at factories and you look at all the advancements that are coming. So innovation is still there. The opportunity is still there. And as the industry ebbs and flows, we all try to become more efficient on the supply chain side and certainly better consultants on the technology side.
Absolutely. No question about it. And, I think, you mentioned specifically the technology growth and expansion that's going on right now. I often mention if somebody had handed me one of today's smartphones, whether that be, an Android device or an iPhone or something like that 20 years ago, I think any of us would have looked at it and said, that's black magic. That can't possibly exist. It's exciting to think where we're going to be 20 years from now, 10 years from now, and what technologies we can't even fathom existing today that are going to be readily available to all of us then. And I think you touched on some of the key ones for engineers when we're talking about wide band gap being, silicon carbide GaN and that technology advancing, AI/ML being incorporated into so many different things. New standards like Matter coming onto the scene that are hopefully going to make it a lot easier to incorporate all of this intelligence around us. Engineers need help with that, and so I think one of the things that we're trying to do as a company, and I know you're very well aware of this, and I hope our audience is as well, is we want to make sure that we've got the right engineers to help our counterparts as they delve into those new areas of technology, bring that expertise and make them better, get them to market faster. If we can do that, that's the partner that we at Future Electronics, I think, want to be, and something that I hope everybody in the audience is taking advantage of as we go.
You know what's interesting, Todd? Because one of your questions in the opening was, is allocation gone for good?
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting question, right? Because if you look at the history of our industry, allocation has come and gone over the years. And as I mentioned earlier, it seems like the cycles are getting closer. And it seems like the allocation gets deeper every time. And that's the volatility of the business we're in, but it's also because of the breadth of technology that the industry is now offering out to our customers. And so, again, if you look at cycle time, building manufacturing products is still a 12 to 18 to 20 to 24 week lead time, depending on what you're building, more complex processing or not. But there's still going to be a manufacturing lead time. That cycle time doesn't go away. So then any kind of shift in delivery and supply will have a massive impact, is what creates these allocation consequences that we're having to deal with here. So I think the reality is today you'll still have spotty parts that have extended lead times, but things are pretty stable. But will allocation return in the back half of 24 and midway in 25? A lot of people in the industry think it will in midway in 25. But the question is, where will it occur? If you look at where we've come from, in 2018, we had a strong allocation in MLCCs, very specifically around that product line.
Right.
And if you look at, as we head into COVID, specific technologies were more challenging to secure, and then that impacted the entire supply chain. So again, allocations could be very niche-y or they could be broad-lined. And when the next one hits is, obviously the big question. But I think it's safe to believe that we need to consult our customers on the right technical and commercial solutions that when it does hit, because it will, they're best protected from that environment.
Right. It's interesting. You mentioned that in allocation and everything. I think, when allocation was going on, everybody, from purchasing managers to engineers was like, oh, I'm never going to let this happen again. We're always going to plan for, make sure we've got, good lead times on parts. We're going to start talking to, our suppliers and our distributors faster and make sure that they know what we need. It seems like almost, I don't know if you're seeing it as well, a lot of people have forgotten. Already it's how quickly our minds kind of go on to the next thing and we start, the parts will be available when I need them. What would your recommendation be, to, companies that are looking and they're eventually going to want to build product? Maybe it's not early 2024, maybe it's late 2024, maybe it's even 2025 when they're going to want to be building product. How should they make sure that they won't get bit by the allocation bug again?
So, totally great point and very accurate. It's unfortunate that what I see is a lot of our customers who went through some pain tend to have forgotten a little bit about what things were just a year ago. And, fundamentally, there's technical and there's commercial, right? Through the cycle, we made sure to invest a lot of our consultants' times, our FAEs, our specialists with customers to make recommendation on technology, but also commercially, what made the most sense. And one of the challenges we have is it's easy to go back to an incumbent solution. It just is. But sometimes that incumbent solution is no longer the best solution for the customer. And so I think we made a lot of recommendations where customers saw, better performance, better size, better price, better availability, whatever it is that drove them to look to transition. And then as things kind of calm down in the allocation cycle, reverting back. So I think that the strategic mindset, which is if this makes best sense for me for the future, then there's got to be a commitment there. And then what you drive from there is visibility. So without visibility, we set ourselves up as an industry to go through another painful cycle. So I understand that it's very challenging to give visibility 12 months out. That's not realistic. But a crisp 90 days and a somewhat crisp 6-month outlook allows everybody to make the right investments. Because you got to understand, and we'll talk about this later, manufacturing investments from our manufacturers, from a factory standpoint, these are 5 to 10 year outlook investments. And they've got to keep these fabs rolling. So, getting a very low amount of visibility makes it quite challenging for continued and accelerated investment.
Right, right, and no question about it. And so with that investment and with lead times are down. I think some of the demand is down in some ways, in some parts. Today we've seen a little bit of a slowdown in the overall industry, at least in the near term. Do you think that has any shift on where pricing is going to stand on different components that are out there?
So I think pricing is always a sensitive topic. Obviously,
Sure.
it's impacted by so many things, right? At the end of the day, supply drives pricing in a big way in our industry, and that's a bit of an uncontrollable because manufacturers are making major investments in these factories, and they're impacted as well by price implications. Freight, as we saw through the cycle, has a huge play as well.
Yeah.
Competitive landscape as vendors come in from the east into other regions of the world. So pricing is quite volatile, quite dynamic. I think again, in our industry, you look at today, it's raising in some areas. It looks like memory on the flash and DRAM
Yeah.
side, pricing's coming back up, but in other areas, it's a little bit more stable. So, fundamentally, I think the key is that we are consulting our customers, both technically and commercially, into long-term sustainable total cost of acquisition solutions, right? Because if you get down to in this component pricing thing, that component price changes a lot through a cycle. But if we're looking at total cost of acquisition or total cost of ownership for the customer, making the right technical recommendations, long term the customer wins, and that's our ambition.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And as we continue on, and we talked a little bit about what's going to drive this growth of the semiconductor industry from the 500 million we're at today to 1 trillion over the balance of the decade. As you talk to suppliers, as you talk to customers, are there any key technologies or applications you're seeing that you think are going to be the real impetus for that growth?
Yeah, so maybe let's reset a little bit on growth, right, and what the timeline looks like, because I think this $1 trillion number often referred to by 2030 or some few years past that.
Right.
So let's look at short term a little bit, 2024.
Sure.
Where are we, right? So we're heading into a bit of an inventory correction year. And it's actually probably confusing to people because if you look at industry charts, if you look at WSTS or Gartner and some of those organizations, what is being declared for next year is double-digit growth globally from an industry perspective. Like, let's keep in mind again, those organizations are semi-specific. So IP&E is a tremendous opportunity for growth for
Yeah.
us, for our customer base as well, and is at the livelihood of all the boards of our customers. But what's interesting is if you pull out very specific segments, the industry behaves very differently. So you've got to think by geography, by segment, how are we behaving? So 2024, again, it's quite clear the way China is behaving versus the way the Americas are behaving are quite different. And it's also pretty clear that if you're in PC and mobile phones and computing, the expectation for some growth is more significant than
Right.
if you're in a more traditional industrial mass market, traditional automotive, medical security, those spaces, which are in a bit of a correction right now as a market. So, what's expected coming into 2024 is certainly there's an excessive inventory at customers. There's an excessive inventory at manufacturers and distributors, and that correction's got to happen. The good news is that with some of these customer segments growing, that will naturally deplete inventory and recreate a healthy churn of requirements. But I think that between instability in the marketplace and customer financial concerns, some of the global macro environment events that we can't control, we're heading into what I think is a tale of two tapes in 2024. I think it's a bit more of a challenging story in 24 in the first half, and I think our industry sees some nice recovery in health in the second half of 24, and certainly get back on track to this $1 trillion plus ambition and vision that we have as an industry.
Right, right. That certainly makes sense. And as we're headed that direction, the other thing I think we hear a lot about are so many different investments, both from global governments, from all of our manufacturers, the different semiconductor companies that we work with, on significant investments that they're making in increasing the number of fabs that they have, increasing the amount of bandwidth that they've got to build more product over time. Do you think that's happening fast enough for the industry?
Yeah, it's a good question, Todd, because I've been in the industry like you for about 25 years, and when we started, there was this mindset of having your own fabs was the best way to go because it was a controllable environment. And then over those years, we saw a lot of suppliers going fabless, a lot of them going hybrid, And that's kind of the trend the industry has gone through. It's quite different, actually, if you look by technology, right? A lot of the power vendors like to control their environment more, and a lot of the digital vendors are usually a little more outsourced or hybrid. So, to your question of are the investments happening, big enough, fast enough, strong enough that they're going to be able to cope when the uptick comes back in the industry? I would say yes. From what I've seen from some of our core vendors, the investments are real. They're ramping. Some of the capacity is coming online next year for many of our key vendors. At the same time, I would say that opportunities like the CHIPS Act, we're probably not taking advantage of at a significant enough scale from the
Right.
industry. And a lot of the vendors that are partners of ours that are, really pumping investment and capacity for our customer base are doing them on their own, not through some government, incentives.
Right.
I think
Exactly.
there's
Yeah.
opportunity for more, for sure. I also think that we hear about, investments on the front end of the capacity. We will need an industry that also invests on the back end, right? Because, for sure, the back end is an important part of the manufacturing process. Some of the industry leaders like ASC, Amcor, and others that are on the rest of Asia, they will have to beef up their back end capacity to sustain the front end investments that we're seeing from our partners. So overall, I'd say it's great. Our industry is building towards this trillion and the upside that's coming. It's hard for our manufacturer partners to plan, capacity outputs as the market ebbs and flows. But I think we're in a good position for more capacity, better control supply chain.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean, like you said earlier, it takes 4 or 5 years for a brand new fab to actually come online. And I think in the answers to the last two questions that I've asked you, I think there's relevant things that are happening. One, you mentioned right now we're seeing a lot of people and a lot of companies out there that are over inventoried today. You also see where, yes, we are trying to expand. The semiconductor companies are trying to expand their actual capacity to build more product, but probably not as fast as maybe we as an industry need right now. I almost feel like there's potential of two storms again coming together where everybody bleeds off their inventory through the first half of 2024, and then simultaneously everybody needs product again, while the semiconductor companies still don't have those new fabs completely built to meet the increasing demand that's in the market. And then we get back into that bad word again of allocation. You kind of wonder if we're not looking at that for late 2024 or even 2025,
Yeah.
going right back into that kind of a timeline.
Yeah, and listen, I think you asked a question. You said, where do I think growth is going to come from in terms of applications and
Right.
segments? Here's the reality. Our industry is so broad and so healthy, right? So
Yeah.
whether you go in any of the mega segments being, automotive and industrial and consumer, and if you look at, military and aerospace and all these big segments that drive business, mobile and computing and others. So the reality is that the industry tends to not all go in the same direction. Some are doing better than others. So the demand is going to be strong, right? So where are we focusing as a company? And you're driving it: energy, automation, transportation, health and wellness, and applications within those spaces that are going to boom. And they're going to be
Yep.
very healthy, and they're going to require some technical support and guidance and great supply chain behind it. But at the same time, the fundamentals of traditional business, industrial, right? Like, you look at just the fundamentals of the industrial business and factories and HVAC, and that business will forever continue to improve, get smarter, become more automated. And so, we want to focus on the mega trends, the really exciting stuff, but there's this beautiful core of industrial business that has just very long legs and a lot of reusability and a need for recommendations. And then certainly we can look at long-term megatrends and look at metaverse and look at decentralized identity and some of these megatrends that people are talking about. But I think if we look in the next today to 5 years, and what drives the industry to this $1 trillion, it's going to come from the markets we all know and the markets we're all investing in today.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to change a tremendous amount from that standpoint. It all still rests on that industrial side. And I think all the other new growth trends are going to continue to feed growth in that industrial market as well. I do, you mentioned those four markets being transportation, automation, health and medical. And then also energy innovations. What we're referring to is really this kind of green energy or decarbonization. That is where the heavy growth is going to be. I'm absolutely convinced those are going to be the fast growth markets over the course of the next 10 years, that we as engineers all need to get more familiar with. We need to be understanding the trends for, and also figuring out where the latest and greatest technologies can fit into those markets. And I think that's how we're going to help our companies be more successful, and absolutely where we want to put our focus as technologists moving forward, which is exciting. It's exciting to kind of have a feel for where the trends are going and where things are going so that you can really invest in yourself, and invest in your technical expertise to go that direction along with it.
And
Um,
I think
yeah,
one of the the great things that we've been driving as a company is our fundamental is to consult our customers on best solutions
yeah,
and on best commercial solutions, and both technical as well. So as we have all these emerging areas of growth and some existing areas of growth that will continue to grow, fundamentally the way we look at it is best solution for the challenges the customer is facing and best commercial solution. And I think that's one of the benefits of the way that we go to market as a company, right? Is to really give that balanced outlook, supplier agnostic outlook, best technical fit, best commercial fit outlook to our customers. So, and I think that our customers are going to need that more and more as more solutions come into play, as more offerings in play, as the supply chain challenges continue to be a factor. I think that our customers are looking to us for some really strong consulting.
agreed, agreed. And we want to make sure that that we're meeting that demand. What I always tell our team and tell everybody is, our goal is to make sure that we've got the right engineering expert in front of the right problem at the right time.
Right.
That's who we want to be. That's who our identity is, and something that we certainly want to make sure that we're offering into the market, because the problems are only getting more complicated. And as an engineer, that's part of the fun of it. But it does mean we've got to sometimes rely on each other, and I hope that we can bring those resources to our fellow engineers as they're meeting those new challenges. So. But so anything, final thoughts on this, Kareem? Anything as we're entering into 2024, as we're kind of moving into, a little bit of a new type of a market, and maybe a little bit of continued challenges on the revenue front. Anything that you would make recommendations to purchasing managers out there, engineers in design, that they need to take into consideration as they're moving into this new year?
Yeah, I would say every year is always an exciting year with challenges that are known and unknown. I think visibility is a key factor, both on new designs and on requirements from a spend perspective, to best position, best solution for our customers. I think that certainly customers, I sense hesitation on lead time accuracy and investments in manufacturing, because I think the last couple of years have been quite challenging. So,
Yeah,
what I would say is obviously work with Future, because for obvious reasons, we have a lot of expertise both on the technical and commercial side. And our job is, again, in a supplier agnostic way, to consult on where are the investments happening, who's committed to certain technology, where are you going to invest the best technology, but get supported when you eventually go to market. The truth is our industry has been volatile forever. So that, that doesn't change any given year. Technology and manufacturer strategies differ greatly. And because we're in a way that we're so close to our manufacturer partners, I think we can really help the customers understand where the investments are, where they're real, where the commitment to a technology may be, and really get ahead of life cycles and supply chain challenges through that communication. And that happens with Future's sales teams, our engineering teams, our specialist engineering teams, the product marketing organization who are available to our customers, and taking advantage of the intelligence that we're building every day, and building tools like our market intelligence reports that we post online for our customers, events like the current that you're managing, to make sure that we really get the word out there on what's really happening out there and how we can help our customers be most successful and profitable and getting product to markets as fast as possible.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, Kareem, thank you so much, my friend. I always enjoy talking with you, and I always appreciate you joining the current. And we're looking forward to a great 2024. We know there will be new challenges. There will be new things that we have to overcome. But we at Future Electronics, and especially in our advanced engineering group, are excited to enter and join you and partner with you as you're dealing with those challenges. If you have anything that you have questions on or would like to talk to one of our engineers about, please reach out to us at Shaping the Future. Again, one word, Shaping the Future, at futureelectronics.com. And we would be happy to reach out to you, get together on a Teams call, come and visit you physically, and sit down with your engineers to really power through some of the challenges that you're dealing with and make sure you've got the expertise that you need to be successful. Again, thanks to everybody for another great season. Wishing everyone a blessed 2024, and we'll look forward to seeing you in season 4 of The Current.